So today we're going to be talking about the aspect of VHDL, VHDL being a highly descriptive language. And what we're going to be talking about is sensitivity lists. That has been an area that has been a bit confusing to students, has been very confusing to programmers or beginners for VHDL. So we're going to talk about sensitivity lists, what needs to be in the sensitivity list, how we determine what to remove, and the rules that apply to them. So let's get to it. Now the first thing to keep in mind is anything that your process needs to know changes of needs to be in a sensitivity list. Now that doesn't mean every single input port or signal needs to be placed in the sensitivity list. And we're going to learn what needs to be in the sensitivity list from these couple examples that I have coming. The first example is this sensitizable register with synchronous reset. Now, before we go forward, what is the sensitivity list, or where is it? We have this process statement here. And after the process statement, there's a bracket with items in it. And you may see ports, you may be seeing signals, right? Whatever is in this bracket is the sensitivity list, right? Now, some persons will put every input port or every signal in sensitivity list. You don't have to put everything in the sensitivity list. So let's look at the example here. And this code is written for a register. And we start off with process statement. Then sensitivity list, we put CLK, clock, is begin. If there's a rising edge of the clock, then if reset is equal to 1, then do something, right? Reset. Else, do something else. End if for this first if statement, and end if for the next if statement, then end process. Now what you realize is we have a synchronous reset. The reset is synchronized with the clock, right? So that clock port, look at how it's aligned with the reset. Only when there's a rising edge of the clock, then we respond to the if reset is equal to 1. So in that case, the reset is synchronized with the clock. As a result of that, we only need to put the CLK clock in the sensitivity list. The reason being, and you will ask why we only need to put CLK in the sensitivity list. It is because everything else is looked at when the clock changes. So because we have the clock in a sensitivity list, when that clock changes, everything that's aligned with the clock signal, the clock port, is also looked at. So the process will be notified of changes of everything in line with the clock. The reset is in line with the clock. So every change of reset would be seen and notified and propagated to the process, since the clock is in the sensitivity list. So in that case, we don't have to put reset in the sensitivity list. So let's look at this other example, and this is of a register where the reset is not synchronized with the clock. So we have an asynchronous reset. Now in this case, the reset needs to be placed in the sensitivity list with CLK, which is the periodic clock waveform, right? So we have in the sensitivity list CLK and reset. The reason being is now that the reset is not synchronized with the clock, the reset signal must be in the sensitivity list because your process needs to check the value of the reset every time it changes, regardless of what the clock is doing. So any port that is not aligned with the clock needs to be in the sensitivity list, because if we do not put it in sensitivity list, when it makes changes, when changes occur to that port, the process will not be notified of that change and your system would not operate as it's supposed to. So just to remind you, we needed to put reset in the sensitivity list because it's no longer, like the previous example, not synchronized with the clock. It's an asynchronous reset. So therefore, the process would have to be notified of changes to it, regardless of what happens to the clock. In the previous example, we actually put the reset was a synchronous reset. It was synchronized with the clock. So all we needed to do was put the clock CLK in the sensitivity list, and once there was a change to the clock, changes to reset would be propagated to the process without reset being placed in the sensitivity list. So I hope that was very informative. We learned about sensitivity lists. We learned what needs to be in sensitivity list, and under what conditions we can remove or put something in a sensitivity list. So I hope that was very useful going forward, and I'll see you all in the next one.